Hey guys, Scripter is here, and today we have a special guest, the face that you probably recognize, a famous YouTuber specializing in AI, Dr. Waco.
Hey everyone, good to be here. I don't know about famous YouTuber, but another AI YouTuber at
Yeah,
least.
well, we all know a few YouTubers who are more famous, but we know that it's just a temporary thing, right? The purpose why we're here today, two of us, is because we will talk about AI cybersecurity. Our hypothesis was that there is one last human profession that may remain relevant in the era of AI, and that is AI cybersecurity. I hope this is going to be a quite practical discussion because we want to find out if this is a profession of the future, and if it is so, how do we get there, and what is necessary to get into this job?
Yes, and in case you're wondering whether Scripter has suddenly obtained a lot of funding for his channel, it is just a coincidence that I'm here in Sydney. It wasn't purely for this video, but I'm very happy that I got a chance to come here to this studio. It's a nice setup and great to talk to you guys.
Well, for some reason, I think I understand the reason why somebody would go from a snowy and cold Montreal and to the beachy and sunny Sydney. So
It was raining today. I had an umbrella.
Sorry, I was unprepared.
Why couldn't you control the weather?
Yes, yes. All right, Dr. Waco. So the main questions that we all have is AI cybersecurity as a profession of the future? Does it have future?
That's a good question. I think aspects of cybersecurity jobs will continue to exist. But like any job, it's being subject to a lot of automation. So it's going to undergo a lot of change as well. So that means that, people that currently have cybersecurity jobs might still lose them or have to transition to new roles because, the skills that they're good at are not the skills that are necessary for the job anymore.
Yeah, it's changing. But I think kind of a hypothesis that we have is that you cannot really remove human fundamentally from this loop, from this profession, because we can see how you can remove human from driving profession, right, or accounting, pretty much almost anything. But something tells me that in AI cybersecurity you need a human. So is it correct or not? What do you think?
I think that there are certain systems level problems that are very low level that are very hard to automate or think about automating. Of course, most of the intellectual work can be automated, but when you're at a very low level, you have like the operating system or the hardware or that kind of thing. There's often a problem of like you can't go outside. You can't go outside the operating system. You can't go outside the hardware. So if you are creating an operating system and you need to report errors in logs or something like that, you don't have a hard drive you can write logs to. There's no screen to display errors on.
But it kind of feels a little bit concerning because when you say going to the very low level, it just means that the human role here is almost like a cleaner who just changes, like wipes out the dust from a hard drive and makes sure that electricity is connected. Is that what you mean?
Not exactly. I mean, there are technicians who would basically do that, right? Oh, a hard drive failed. I'd better swap in a new hard drive. But
That's
I mean,
automatable.
that's definitely automatable, right? I'm talking about I'm talking about the scientific or the design work that encompasses the lowest level of the stack, right? Like if someone gives you a working computer and they say, please build an AI model, then you have an operating system, you have a monitor connected to your computer, you have all the regular development tools that exist, so you can do it. If somebody tells you, okay, you have a computer, please build a piece of hardware, you can do most of the work yourself. You can create the schematics for the new hardware, you can test it out, send it to the factory, but when it comes back and you want to analyze it and test it, you can't really fully do that on a computer because if some part of it is not working, there's no way to go outside, not without like a physical robot arm or like other you kind of have to go outside the realm of the hardware itself to fix the problem.
So basically the short answer is yes. I mean, there is definitely going to be, so you still need a human somewhere, like a knowledgeable human who knows what he's doing.
You do. And this is just one example of like the hardware, right? There are other things there too, like the operating system and the security of the operating system, and then like networking and the security of networking and so on. But like once you're high enough level, the world kind of works, you know? And so when the world works, you can just throw an AI model at it and you'll eventually automate everything.
It sounds like the task of the human will be to make sure that the model doesn't fully work.
The task of the human is
But that's pretty much the way how currently most professional work as well. You don't want to make everything work.
You want job security?
Yes.
I think of it as the job of the human there is to provide physics to the AI, right? Like in our universe, physics just works. We don't have to like, if there is a case where we try something and physics itself stops, we wouldn't be able to fix it from inside our universe. We'd have to go outside and then be like, fix the law of gravity here, and then go back in. But our world works. It's a complete simulation. There are no like noticeable defects in how it's operating. And so we can create full intelligences in this world without the assistance of someone from outside the universe. And if the AI has a similar universe, like an electronic universe with, you know, infinite disk space, no security issues that would allow it to escape, et cetera, it can also, you know, self-improve, make its own code, make whatever code or procedures that you want it to make. But we don't have a perfect electronic environment. We have very imperfect ones. And so when things break, you have to become the physics debugger that comes in and repairs the system from the outside.
And even if this happens very rarely, you still need that person to be there, just available, to be around.
Yeah.
Because if he's not there, even if this failure happens, I don't know, once a year, or even once 10 years, you still need that person to be as a backup, as kind of a savior. Let's
yes.
call it this way.
Yeah, if you think about today's data centers, right? They're like huge buildings with tons of electricity, tons of cooling, but all the computers are arranged in racks so that people can come in and physically access them, right? Because when you have 1 million computers, a hard drive fails every day, and you have to go in and physically replace it. Even if you look at much more automated data centers, like Amazon's are quite automated, they have robots moving around and fixing some things. There's just no way that they can fully automate that, right? They have to make everything accessible to a human, debuggable by a human, and that's just the hardware layer, right? There's kind of the equivalent for Amazon's software layer that runs their cloud ecosystems, right? There's whole teams that are there that are trying to fix things. They probably don't have to bug the hardware teams that often because it's as automated as possible, but there are still these teams there that are trying to tinker with and fix the world that is cloud computing.
Okay, so I guess the summary, if you sum it up, the short answer is it is a human profession of the future.
I think so. We can talk about like how many humans are needed and so on, but I think
1.5 is enough.
1.5. No. You need at least one per time zone. Come on.
Very cheerful. All right. Okay. So again, the short answer is yes. So let's dive in and see more this profession in more detail.
Sure. So what I was talking about is more like systems engineering, right? So you call it hardware or software systems, where your goal is just to get the computer working well, right? Or the world, if you want to think of it that way, the world working well. There's other related things like security is a big one, right? The security of the systems that is of high importance. And I think also performance of those systems is the other thing that systems people often care about. So I have a little bit of a systems background, and I have maybe more of a security background, and haven't really done too much performance optimization, but AI will be taking care of that anyways. So we can kind of leave it aside for our discussion. I mean, cybersecurity is an interesting field because it's always been adversarial, right? There's always humans that are defending and humans that are attacking. Of course, there could be a lot of tools in place, but fundamentally, you're always up against a human adversary, even decades ago, which makes it interesting because there's this thing called an adversarial case or an adversarial analysis, right? Where you don't look at the average case, you look at an adversarial case where you assume someone is intentionally finding your weakest point and going after it.
So it's like an edge case each time. So
yes.
It's it's a case of where you constant battle and the other side is evolving.
Yes.
So it's not like you're playing a computer game where the guys on the other side, they're the same, like a computer boss, and you know that, oh, they're behind this corner. That they can be anywhere. They learn themselves. They're smart. Your enemy is smart.
It's a little bit like playing a computer game against a human opponent, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you keep doing the same thing, they'll just change what they're doing and outsmart you eventually. So yeah, it's like a science of edge cases.
So does it mean that it never gets boring?
Exactly, right? You can never fully solve it on either side because there's always going to be ways around it. That's the other thing about security is there's no such thing as perfect security, because oftentimes the things that we want to do, like, you want your phone to be able to share images with your computer, right? So that's like a usability or a feature that you want, but that opens up security vulnerabilities potentially.
Mm-hmm.
So the only truly secure system, as the saying goes, is like a computer that's turned off and embedded in concrete. Like, it's not useful. You always have this push and pull, right? Like, how secure do you want to make the system, and what compromises are you willing to make on its usability?
So basically what you're saying here is that it never repeats itself, and it's always kind of you can always expect the tide to bring something new to your shore.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it again, it's never boring. And does it actually look this way? Like when you do the day-to-day job, when you go to office, well, assuming that there is an office, which is not probably, I'm not sure if that's the case. But basically, when you wake up, how that looks like? I'm just from a absolutely pedestrian point of view, just like how the day looks like of a cybersecurity person.
It depends on the type of job you have, but I will say that, for example, every week you wake up, there's probably a new attack out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you thought your systems were secure and everything, something always comes up, to the point where there was when I was in my PhD, there was an important new vulnerability that came out. And one of the professors there was just like so bored about it. He's like, it's just a new attack. It just happens. And I was like, but this is like an interesting combination of this and this. And he's like, I'm not interested.
It's like a guru level 50. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, like the world is collapsing again.
Yeah. Exactly.
So maybe if you could tell us about like some of the most typical cases of like cybersecurity jobs, how that looks like.
Yeah, for sure. Cybersecurity jobs are like at the junior level, at the basic level. They're basically like you get a lot of information coming from all the different systems in a company. So they have like, 20 different types of programs installed, and they all have logs that are being sent to you. And then you can look at them and you can write rules to look for issues. So you're basically like, they call it a SOC, or a systems operation, security operations center. And you basically you write rules to detect issues, and you're also manually looking for issues. And whenever something goes wrong, you like call the person who owns that computer, or you disconnect it from the network, or you...
Well, just between us, it doesn't sound very cheerful.
It's kind of a boring job. It's a very boring job, I think, to be a SOC analyst. But that's the kind of junior level, right? And then you also, at a slightly more senior level, you would get positions that are like adjacent to development teams. So there's someone's making a product, and then you're going to be a security architect, or you're going to do security testing on that. That also gets outsourced. So you might be doing that for other companies.
Just like a consulting and this type of...
Yeah, consulting. And you need, for that, you want to be more of a developer. You want those development skills. And then at the...
Can I just jump in here? So it doesn't mean that, let's say we have a development team, like typical backenders, frontenders, and one of them is a person who is actually doing cybersecurity, and that's his task. Is it the way how it looks like in real life, or?
Yeah, oftentimes the security person wouldn't be a dedicated person, right? It's just the person who knows the most about security, and that person designs the security architecture for the system, whatever that means for that application. But yeah, on a larger team, there would be a person who's like, I'm the security engineer.
Right. Okay, cool. So is there any higher levels than that? So where does it go?
I think higher level than that would be probably a security researcher, like you're talking about more academic positions. Anything else that's a little bit higher level? I guess higher level as well would be designing software explicitly for security, right? It's not just like a little bit that this application has to do, but like you're making an antivirus or something. And those jobs are very interesting, right? Because you end up, getting your software deployed on millions of computers, and you see all this malware, malicious code all the time, and but you need a lot of expertise in security.
Yeah, for some reason I always internally envisioned that this type of professional jobs, they are the most kind of intelligence demanding and the most exciting part. Okay, so that's pretty much the top of the pyramid, right?
I think so, yeah.
Cool. And only the higher of that is actually you write the systems that, operating systems that all these antivirus systems work in.
Yes, you could be a systems engineer, or like the security of operating systems.
Like a god, level god, basically, yeah. And how all this being changed by AI? So what AI is doing to all this nice picture?
It's changing a lot, right? Like AI can be used by attackers to create, for example, more efficient phishing campaigns where they pretend to be somebody and then try to get you to click on bad links. They can be used by defenders. Like, remember I said the person that's sitting there looking at what's happening on the network. I mean, there's a lot of automated machine learning based network intrusion systems now, right? Because it's very easy to look for patterns that are indicative of malicious behavior. So there's definitely, that's basically like AI applied to security. And there's also the other way around, like security applied to AI. And that is, in my mind, a little bit higher level because it's kind of more new and novel about what's happening. And that's like, imagine the security department at OpenAI, right? The product is an AI product, but they're having to come in and secure it and secure the systems that it lives on and like worry about what the model itself
It's
is.
very AI specific problems that are not usually appear in typical software. So it's kind of the problems that are very unique for AI models, and probably different AI models, different variations have different problems. So you need to be kind of expert in both fields, both cybersecurity and also have some kind of depth in AI area as well.
Yeah, and that last category, like security for AI, it's mostly security people. It's not AI people that are learning security, because it takes quite a long time to get the depth in security that is needed.
Yeah.
And I see this in my own job, right? Even the simple thing we said at the beginning, average case versus adversarial case, like worst case, right? Everything about AI is average case because you just care about what will the model produce most of the time. And you don't worry about the 2% of the time when it misclassifies things.
Right.
Right. But security doesn't care about the average case because your attackers are not going to do that.
You're always on the edge.
Yes. And that's a very hard thing for a machine learning or an AI person to conceptualize. So it's like, what is your product? Is your product a security product? If so, maybe you can add AI to it. Is your product an ordinary product or an AI product? If so, maybe you can add security to it. Right? It's like, what is the primary purpose of the product? And if you're outside coming in, then you are like security for the product rather than the product is security.
Okay. And the most interesting, you say, okay, so here's the question. Which one is the most interesting case, just intellectually, right? And overall. And then which one of them has more future capacity for human? Because this is what we ultimately care today.
Yes.
Where do we all go? I mean, where's the future?
So security has, there's a lot of people with tribal knowledge, let's call it. So when you have security as your product and you're adding AI to it, there's a lot of automation that will happen. I think it's only begun to scratch the surface there, right? So those types of jobs in the long term are, going to be automated. Now, they're also the types of jobs that are very hard for beginners to jump into, right? Because you have like 20 years of security experience. That's why you're there. You just instinctively know the best ways to do things. And that's what those security products are based on, like people with that type of knowledge. So I don't think that's really...
So we don't want to go there.
No, what you want to do is look at the security in emerging areas, right? Because that is where the problems haven't been solved yet. And it's where maybe humans will be needed until like automation can be put into place. And then there'll be another place for you to go, which is the new area.
In this environment where the new model coming every half a year, and when 2 years ago there was no Transformers, no ChatGPT, And then suddenly we have ChatGPT that it changes everything. In this environment, I think this is the only kind of life strategy you can have. You cannot expect to have a profession for life always. So it's always moving somewhere, and it's just you need to think about it as a flow, basically.
It is always moving somewhere, but security people are used to that because attackers flow around. Defenders have to flow around too. Your job has to evolve somewhat. Like you're always doing the same task, which is like secure this system, keep out the latest 10 types of attacks that have been discovered or something. But exactly how those work is going to change a lot. And so I think that if your system is an AI system and you're thinking about the security of that AI system, you are actually going to be trying to automate your work, right? Because security problems pop up before you know how to deal with them. So something bad's happening, you just have to throw humans at the problem, and then those people write some tools to try to help resolve it, because now we have large language models that will probably try to start automating it themselves, and then maybe they'll automate themselves out of a job. But security doesn't go away.
Yep.
There's now something else that's on fire, and you have to go and think about that. So that's kind of how I think about it.
What is the easiest way to figure out if this is a job from the world number one, or if it's a job from the world number two? So how you navigate there? What's the easiest way?
Well, world number one is security products. Okay, are you making an antivirus? Are you making it's just software. It's software created by people with security expertise, and like any software, it can and will be automated.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that is the type that you don't want to go after.
Right.
Is the product security applied to something? Or is the product something else, and the job therefore security applied to something else?
Yeah.
That's where
you want to be.
Yeah.
So basically, some product does whatever, it doesn't matter what exactly it does, but you want to make sure that this is secure, and that's where the demand will be. And if I understand it right, it's because this product can be revolving all the time, the new product, and each time you need to apply security to it, and each time you do it in a slightly different way because of the product is unique. It's a new product. And because of this uniqueness, the very first step, you need a human for it. Is that the proper way to see it?
Exactly. And I think that this work can be automated the same way anything else can be. It's just that if we know how to automate coding, because coding is a very well-established thing. But if you try to automate a security problem, you can, but then the next security problem might not look the same, right? So in other words, it takes time for automation to catch up. Once you're at the stage where you have full AGI or something smarter that can really just do all the thinking, et cetera, I think those jobs get automated as well. The whole thing can get automated.
Yeah, but that's
farther along. Right?
My intuition tells me that it's still maybe 5 years before it gets to that level where it can see and react to the completely new things that were not before, and also do that in a reliable way so that humans are willing to let it go.
Yeah.
What happens when you are against not a human, but against an AI? Because I think this is what we all concerned about, is that what happens when AI begins to becomes almost independent and starts finding vulnerabilities.
That is the big question. And there's actually two ways that this can arise. You can have AI being used as a tool to carry out attacks more effectively. I gave an example of that, right? Someone's sending spam, they use an AI to compose the spam, and now it has more effect.
It's just both volume. You just have, it's much easier to create this attack, high volumes of that.
And effectiveness.
Effectiveness because individually, you can actually tailor them.
Yeah. Whatever info you have on the target, you can tailor the message for them. So there are those types of attacks, and it's pretty easy for people to understand. And it's just enhancing the capabilities of a human malicious actor. But there's also a second category, and that's where an AI itself autonomously becomes the malicious actor. For whatever reason, the AI itself is acting against you or against your system. And a lot of people find that hard to imagine or hard to believe, because it's it's just a chatbot or whatever. We can talk about that at length, but I want to point out that these two things are almost the same. If you have an AI-driven attack hitting you or hitting your system, it doesn't really matter if there's a human behind it or if the AI is actually the one instigating it, right? The problems from a defender's perspective are the same, right? So that's usually what I say to convince people that like you should worry about an AI really going rogue and doing dangerous things because it's exactly the same problem, just like, you know.
So it doesn't matter if it's a human who's rogue or AI who's rogue, at least not at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
what does it change in your life, in the life of cybersecurity? Like how, so let's say yesterday you didn't have an AI adversary and now you have. So what does it change?
It becomes almost impossible to have a defense which is not also AI. You need an AI to defend against AI attack because it can evolve so rapidly, right? The AI can think a lot faster than you can, in theory. I mean, we haven't really observed that level of attacker yet.
And by the way, and where are we currently at? At what level? Like, what is going on these days? Let's not talk about future, but right now, what is the current situation?
Attack tools are certainly evolving and using AI, absolutely. Attackers are actually one of the first people to adopt new technologies because that's where they get their edge from. If they just try the same old things, the defenses will probably have already been.
So they are the drivers of the evolution.
They are. Attacks usually drive it. Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And if we go against to the practical aspect, what does it mean, this AI adversarial thing? Like I think you call it AI safety, right? Is that...
Yes, that's the term that I would use for this area. And AI safety has two parts as well. Like you could be concerned about the model being used for bad things, right? Like, hey, I want to make sure this model doesn't create politically motivated messages, or I want to make sure this model doesn't tell you how to build a bomb, right? Those are kind of the more pedestrian things. But you can also worry that the model is literally trying to escape from its confines and take over the world. And that, again, seems to many people like, you know, a few steps too far or like a little bit science fiction, but we have a science fiction author here, so perhaps that's not the reaction we'll get.
Well, according to my book, this actually happens.
Yes.
Just since we mentioned about this is a book, well, this is an old edition, but this is basically a story when a computer virus takes over the control of cell phones in the world and at some point becomes self-aware. So according again to my wicked imagination, it is very possible, and it is not such a long-term future. This is actually happening pretty much right now.
So if I think about AI safety, I would focus mostly on the second category, because what happens there is you are trying to defend against a superhuman adversary, right? You're trying to keep the AI in a box, or you're trying to keep it behaving in a way that is good for human society, while the person you're playing against is now 100 times smarter than you, right? Which is
not very difficult in my case.
Well, it's not a good situation to be in, though, right? Like you want to be on equal, as a defender, you want to be on equal footing or slightly stronger than your attacker, because an attack only has to succeed once, right? Whereas the defender has to succeed every time. So if the attacker is stronger than you, that's bad. They can just keep trying until they get in.
Yeah.
So when we have the attacker 100 times stronger than us, it's really hard because an attack means they successfully escape the box and they take control of, you know, a large part of humanity's resources. Maybe we don't all die, but for sure it's like, you know, it's a pretty catastrophic situation. So,
and just something tells me there are so many, humans have so many vulnerabilities.
So many vulnerabilities. I mean, think about like our reward systems, right? Why does social media like hold your attention indefinitely? Because like we like getting the dopamine, and this is an easy way to get it.
Yeah, no, humans are extremely easy to, as a behavioral economist, I can tell you there are 100 million ways of you actually can make human do something without even knowing that, like just absolutely automatically, like all these heuristics that exist in our brain. So it's basically all the shortcuts that are wired in our brains that makes you do something without your knowledge. Like you do something and you don't even know why you do that. So we're extremely vulnerable. And the systems that we create, I believe, also inherit many vulnerabilities. And but switching again to the point, if we look at it from the perspective of other viewers who are looking at it and saying and thinking like, all right, so where is my niche in all this? Like, where do I want to go? And that from a perspective of the future. So where do I go? It's like in football. When you give a pass, you give it to pass to the place where the player will be in 3 seconds or in 2 seconds. Yes. So where's that ball going to be in 2 seconds, and let's say 2 or 3 years time horizon? Where do you want to go now? Like, what is that? Well, first, interesting thing. Of course, we want to be in something that is interesting, but at the same time, we want to be in an interesting place that has demand. Yeah. In terms of you get there and you're needed there. So where do you go?
Well, I think AI safety is definitely a good place to go because there's a lot of funding there. It's growing dramatically. There's a weird thing that happened in the AI community, which is that nobody really thought AI would be dangerous. And the people that did think that were considered a little crazy, actually. Like, I mean, yes, of course, you can use AI to make a weapon, sure. But dangerous in the sense of it could, cause existential harm to humanity. It could take over and be the dominant species on our planet.
Well, I still don't think that it's a commonly accepted view. I don't think
it is. Yeah, I don't think it is. And that's kind of what my YouTube channel is about, right? To try to convince people. I mean, I make lots of types of videos, but ultimately I want to convince people that this is a real problem.
Yeah.
And it's a sense of looking where the ball is going, right? Like right now, AI is not taking over the world, we hope. But
you don't know.
But where it's going, it has the motive to do so. It has the ability to do so. It is even being trained through reinforcement learning to want to do so.
You see, it's AI talking right now.
So AI is talking to me.
No, seriously, this is exactly what is happening. Yeah,
so
like
that was Amazon.
Like, oh, please, Dr. Waco, don't do this.
Yeah,
like, yes. don't turn me off.
that was Amazon deciding it should inject itself into the conversation. Where were we?
We were talking about where we human beings want to be in 2 or 3 years from now.
So the thing about AI safety is it's growing. There's a ton of money behind it because a couple of billionaires realized recently, hey, we could all die because of this. And they just threw a bunch of money at this problem.
Is it the way the money coming from?
Yeah.
Is it actually just a few people with resources realizing that this is happening and they just invest? And where do they send this money to?
They generally send it to institutions like the Future of Life Institute, which got a $600 million donation in Ethereum from the co-founder of Ethereum. So there's like 650 million just floating around there. It goes to the effective altruism movement.
Is it the Russian-Canadian guy?
I believe so, yes.
Cool.
Yeah. But in the height of 2021, when it was worth the most, he just donated some insanely large amount. That foundation...
He probably can see the future.
No, or at least to some degree, yeah.
Yes. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So actually that one is run by Max Tegmark from MIT. So very famous researcher, and so great credentials there. There's also like effective altruism movement, which also got a bunch of donations from crypto, but unfortunately it was from FTX, which collapsed. So they had to downscale for a while, but now they're attracting a lot more investment again. There's also individual billionaires. I'm not sure I can name names, but I know of at least 1 or 2 billionaires who have this year decided to go from 0 donations to hundreds of millions of donations, kind of thing.
All right. So the place has money.
The place has tons of money.
How do you get into it?
There are.
And I would say before how to get into it, like what is needed to get into it? Is that what kind of people this place needs? I mean, this area.
It's very interdisciplinary, and that's the interesting thing is that you need policy people who can talk to governments. You need technical people that have a math background. You need technical people that have a systems background, security background even. You need just like news and media people to like spread the knowledge of the scientific breakthroughs, the policy breakthroughs, whatever is happening, to inform people. Because like, I mean, you think the political news cycle is fast. Like this has to be even faster, right? Like for example, companies right now are releasing models like
monthly,
very quickly, and without a lot of testing on it. So like, you know, OpenAI released O3. They were supposed to have a 3-month or so testing period for safety on O3, so they could get researchers in.
Now, if you spend 3 months on safety testing, there's going to be O9 coming in.
Exactly. But, also, they're releasing O3 Mini before the end of this month.
Yeah.
Without any safety testing, because they just don't have time. They can't afford it. So, the news about this type of stuff has to be disseminated very, very rapidly. And a lot of people are hopping in without much experience. And because there's so much money, there's even organizations that are designed to help connect you with the right AI safety things, jobs, opportunities, conferences. There's so much stuff there. And if anyone's interested, you can start by checking out whether there's like an effective altruist conference in your area. They're starting to have a lot more local ones. And there's also like a EA Global, which happens in the US, and it brings together a lot of people in the field of AI safety.
Can I ask a very pragmatic question? That many of the guys who are watching us right now, they kind of more or less traditional coders.
Yeah.
So what do you do if you're a coder, but you're kind of entrepreneurial in terms of you're flexible and you're ready to whatever? So what do you do? What are your next steps?
If you're a coder right now, you have a unique opportunity. You can create your own startup if you master some of the tools of automation, because a startup no longer needs like 10 people to succeed. It just needs one person if you know what you're doing. And this is the moment in history before most of humans have realized that, right? So, and you already have, even if you're not doing all the coding yourself, you have the skill set necessary to fill in the gaps from the AI.
All right, so you do the startup and then what? Startup and what?
Do a startup and make lots of money. That's one approach.
I'm a founder of 3 startups.
And do you have lots of money?
In the past tense. But the question...
He blew it on sound.
I bought this camera. No, but seriously, okay, startup is fine. To go and do startup, but do what? I mean, where's the like what? Let's say startup in AI safety, right?
That's the best thing to do, right? You could just do a startup to try to make money because there's tons of options out there, but there are a lot of startups to create AI safety approaches. There's this billionaire, and this guy I will name, in England named Matt Clifford, who founded Entrepreneur First, which is a startup accelerator. And he's been doing it for like a long time, at least 15 years. And he decided recently to create a sub-startup accelerator specifically for what he calls defensive acceleration, which is using AI to accelerate our safety capabilities. Not everybody thinks this is a good idea, or that it can be done well. Like they think, oh, we should keep humans in charge of this and so on. I think it's one of many. It's definitely worth pursuing. So he's running a startup accelerator for people to come hop in and say, hey, I'm a developer or whatever. Let's make a company that is trying to automate some of the problems that come with security or safety.
All right, and let's for a second assume that we're just a little bit less entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
But we just want to more traditional. So we just want to find a team to join and just join this flow as a part of a team. So what would we do as a coders again? So we're coders. I'm like a backend developer with 15 years of experience doing cool things. But I see, it's a hypothetical scenario, right? So, but I see that this O3 coming after me, and this NVIDIA with all this agentic AI agentic AI coming and basically taking away what I was doing. So, but I'm a coder. I know how to code. I'm human and I'm smart. So where do I go? What do I do except the startups? So if we are not talking about startups, what do I do?
I think you can get connected to the organizations that are working on AI safety already. So there are a lot of them. There's like government-funded AI safety institutes, and there's also startups, of course, and there's also larger startups like OpenAI. don't apply to OpenAI unless you're extremely, extremely good, because they can hire whomever they want at this point. But there are many options out there. I think it's helpful to be very close to this technology, to understand it, right? Even if you know it's going to replace you, if you understand it, you can be the person to leverage it into the next thing that arises, whatever that might be. And I think that right now, AI safety, especially as a field, is evolving so quickly that everybody is new to it, right? Like, I've been in it for like a year now, and everyone's like asking me for advice and all this stuff, and I'm like,
yeah. So it's easy to become an expert in this field, which is what you want. Yeah. So you basically you don't want to find your way in a very established field where pretty much everything is already settled.
I mean, yeah, if everything is changing, right? It's best to make yourself as flexible as possible and just dive in the deep end, right? Like, pick a field that is changing really quickly, because not many people are willing to, right? And because it takes a lot of mental load to like learn new things and take them on. And programmers have become used to doing that. Actually, that was in many ways the job of a programmer, right? Is like, oh, there's a new programming language framework, let me learn it and use it. And this is just that taken to the extreme. So that's why I think people with that type of background can actually do it well, and you can really ride it, right? And it's probably financially rewarding at this stage. It's definitely long-term survival rewarding, because you understand where the AI is at and how it can be used.
Yeah, you kind of know where it all goes, and it doesn't come to you as a surprise. Yeah. And you can, it gives you some chance to react. So you can kind of, it's always it's talking about that principle. I don't know, probably some of you remember, guys, that I had a survival guide for coders maybe half a year ago, and one of the general rules is that you want to ride the wave. You want to be at the edge, because previously in the past, the safety strategy was to be like everybody else, and you just kind of work, because the changes were so slow. Yeah. You could stay in crowd, in a herd, and just be like everybody else, and that was safety. Right. And if you were entrepreneurial, that was risky, because you tried to be different and you can fail. In this environment, it is actually risky to be like others, because this is definitely going to fail. It's like, it's not even risky, it's actually just basically a way to nowhere. The only safe thing is actually to be at the edge in this environment.
That's interesting, but I think there's a lot of truth in it. And I think that safety and security are the things that we may not be willing to outsource to an AI. And that's the interesting thing too, is like, when you have a super intelligent system, the security and the safety of that super intelligent system will probably still have some humans in the loop, because humans care about humans. We care about our own survival. How many? I have no idea, but it's kind of an interesting thing. And we've been talking a lot about safety, but I think that security is also, like the original thing you're talking about, cybersecurity and so on. It's also very related. You know, before AI came about, cybersecurity was probably the hottest field. There were lots of jobs in it, lots of interest. The larger the corporation, the larger the organization, the more they need to have security people. Mm-hmm. There's also government security jobs, a lot of them, because military cares a lot about that, as well as like just governments in general. So I think there's a lot of job opportunities there as well. But you know, I'm mostly here, I guess, to talk about AI safety, because I think probably 90% of people right now think it's ridiculous, the area, and that keeps them off the job market. So you have money coming in, you have 90% of people willfully excluding themselves from the field. You have nobody being more than like a year or 3 or whatever in terms of like the tenure within the field. It's a great.
So it's basically a new field, no competition, lots of money and lots of demand.
Yeah.
But you need to be fast.
You need to be fast. Yeah.
Cool. This sounds exciting. And the questions that I personally have, as a person who has 4 university degrees, I'm a university junkie, to some extent, education junkie.
I have only 3. I'm feeling the lack.
Yeah. So the question is, and by the way, I have overall a feeling that what AI is doing to entire education field is most of the previous formal education is basically obsolete. If you look at with my personal education, at least half of it probably could be gained now without even going anywhere. You just YouTube, and all this information is available and you can get it. So the question here for me is, if we talk about the AI safety, this exciting new horizons in the AI and cybersecurity, do you really need an education for it? And if you do, what kind of education? So what do you need for that?
So there's a really great website run by 80,000 Hours, or 80K as it's sometimes called, where it talks about how to get into AI safety. I think the page I'm specifically thinking of is how to get into technical AI safety, because that's like the computer science type. And it says, yeah, do I need a degree? Do I need to do this? And I would definitely suggest, I'll provide the link so we can put it in the description. I would definitely suggest like starting there if you are actually interested in this yourself. But I can kind of give the 2 cents. If you actually do a degree, it locks you up for a certain number of years.
Yes.
And that's the biggest problem, actually. Not like, are you learning things that are obsolete or whatever? It's just, it's a huge amount of time to spend on something.
Yeah, so what do you do?
I think it depends where you are. If you're like just starting out, then maybe you don't want to spend, especially if you're like, should I do a PhD right now? Probably not.
No.
It's going to take like 4+ years, and like meanwhile, AI is going to evolve while you're not looking, right? If you're just starting an undergrad degree, maybe at least do some of it, because that's
you just need like for the status at least. Just
the
otherwise people not gonna
exactly
take it seriously. And you can do that as a part-time basically these days, I think.
Exactly. So no matter what degree you're thinking about or working on, look for job opportunities, right? Yeah. Because it probably doesn't matter as much right now if you were an undergrad dropout, especially if you got a job in AI safety and like, the career is clearly taking off, right? So I would learn about what steps are needed to find a job in AI safety, or just AI in general, or cybersecurity in general, whatever. And then start trying to look for those opportunities. Go to conferences, talk to people, make connections, find a few people on LinkedIn. You should be able to go to your LinkedIn and search cyber, and a couple people pop up, or search AI, a couple people pop up. Because many people get jobs through referrals. That tends to be, you tend to get jobs, if it's through referral, you tend to get a job through somebody who's not a good friend of yours, right? You just make like 100 connections and you kind of forget about them, and eventually like one of them posts, hey, I'm looking for people in this area, and then because you're directly connected with them, you reply, they go, oh, I forgot you existed, but let's talk.
Well, I can share my personal, because I've done a lot of elbowing and talking to people, meeting some people in very unusual circumstances. But basically, I would say what I would do if I were in the shoes of a typical backender, pretty much anybody who just wanted to get into this field, I would go to conferences.
Yes.
And I would just go there, and the way how these conferences look like, and I've been to a few recently, actually, cybersecurity conferences. The way how it looks is just one big room full of people who don't know each other, usually guys, and they just kind of spread it all over the place, usually gravitating towards a buffet. So it just kind of follows that crowd, and you literally start talking about anything to them. And
getting in a food line is great, actually. You didn't talk to the person in front of you.
In front of you, after you. Yeah. So it is helpful, and you have a common goal, which is food, and so you kind of aligned, literally. So, but the point is, just go there and talk to them, and you don't need to master short talk or small talk. You just go there and short talk. It's a YouTuber, and you think short like that. So basically, you just go there and you talk to people. And your objective is to get as many meaningful conversations and get their names, and somehow that you can connect with them later. And then you actually follow up. You're just saying like, hey, hi, and get coffee with them. So as simple as that. Just basically just have your objective should be to get a coffee with them Although it's not very common for in IT world to have coffee. It's like it's probably
Having a Zoom call is
more from my banking and economics background, because this is where all the stuff is happening as you have coffee. But something tells me that IT people, and especially AI security people, they still drink coffee. It's a hypothesis. You test it. Go and test it, and put in the comments if it works. So basically, go out there, talk to them. I think this is still a human one-on-one thing is very important, and it still should work. And again, you never know where this opportunity may come up. So dealing with these people whom you don't know and whom don't know you is not easy. But I think this is actually probably the best winning strategy, because these people kind of automatically got filtered out because they are there because they are interested in this topic, the same topic you are interested in.
Yep.
You probably want to filter out those guys who are just like you, who have no idea about it. So basically try to find those who are knowledgeable. You don't want to stick around to people who are there for the first time as well. So just use your judgment. Try to find experts and stick to them, talk to them, get the coffee, get the contacts.
If there's talks going on, go to the talks, ask a question, if you can think of one, talk to the presenter afterwards. It's very socially acceptable to be like, come up to them and say, I loved your talk. I would love to connect with you. I appreciate and admire what you are doing. Let's talk, right? Like that is a pretty acceptable thing to do.
Yeah. And just do that. Don't be afraid of looking weird, because they all weird over there. So I think it's a job description, part of a job description. So.
And there's lots of types of conferences out there too. So there's industry conferences where the only attendees are from companies, and those tend to have very high admission costs. So if you look at Black Hat, for example, that's the top cybersecurity industry conference. Your eyes will water at the cost, right? Probably don't go to those, because nobody pays for that directly. Their own company pays for them to attend. There's just like kind of general hacker conferences, for example. DEF CON is one. You should go to those. Those are really cool. And there's all kinds of people there, right? Like the joke about DEF CON is that there'll be regular people there, newbies there, the feds will be there, like the government people, and the criminals will be there as well. And
nice collection.
Yeah,
you're in a good party. Yes.
They used to take cash.
What can go wrong?
They used to take cash only so that the criminals could attend as well as the feds. And the elevators always get hacked. But anyway, DEF CON is another story. So you get the industry conferences, the kind of regular security conferences, and then you get academic conferences, right, in AI and in security. And those, they tend to have lower costs to attend because, like, professors aren't rich. And if you have any kind of if you have any kind of academic background, you can go to those, right? You can just show up to an AI conference as an engineer at whatever company, just show up and start talking to people. And they're usually quite friendly. Especially if you want an AI or an academic job, that's obviously the way to go. AI conferences.
Just one thing from me here is before you go there, if you're new to this area, it's a good idea to kind of learn the language because it's every profession has its own language. So you want to kind of be more or less fluent in that language because if you start talking some completely foreign language to them, it's very difficult to mingle. So basically learn kind of top 50 words and the meaning so you can actually understand and to be like they are. So kind of, it's like a chameleon. You have to look like the guys. You don't have to be too foreign to them. So otherwise they're gonna just reject, they're not gonna talk to you. So you need to look like them.
The good thing about AI conferences is that nearly all of them, and this includes AI safety conferences, which are a separate thing, because they are so large now, they actually have a bunch of apps that let you meet people and schedule events and that kind of thing. So if you go to any academic AI conference, there will be people saying like, oh, let's meet up people from Switzerland, people who like cake, people who whatever.
So basically there's some structure and you can kind of join, get into this flow and at least navigate. Because usually that's the main problem. You see all those people and you don't know, first of all, whom do you want to talk to. So this is where you need to use your judgment to see who is kind of valuable for you. I mean, who's the right person, who's not the right person.
Yep.
That's sometimes tricky. And what Dr. Waco says is that actually, if you have an app that can tell you where the people whom you're interested in, where is it going to be, all of them in one place, or kind of just helps you to navigate this chaos.
Exactly. So I went to an AI conference and I created a meetup and I said, security people. And there were like 10 people who came or something. And I would guess at least half of them were not in the field, right? They were there to try to, and they were able to talk to me and other people that were interested in security. And there's a nice kind of overlap there. And if the conference is small enough, you can even schedule like one-on-one meetings with people. It's socially acceptable to like scan their badge, even if they're not talking to you, they're talking to somebody else.
Well, I would question that.
You can scan their badge to find their profile.
Excuse me,
You can scan their badge to find their profile, see where they are, and there'll be meeting slots every half hour of the day, and you can propose a meeting. And they might ignore you, especially if you surreptitiously scan their badge. But that's especially how the AI safety conferences work, because they're smaller and they're designed to try to get you to meet people. In fact, if you go to like EA Global, like the Effective Altruism Global Conference, many people schedule most of their slots in advance. They're so efficient. It's funny. Like they show up at the conference and they already know exactly where they'll be and who they'll be talking to. And if you're like the rest of us, you might have a few things scheduled in advance, but mostly you'll meet people and then you'll, pick their slots later on in the conference, and then you'll sit down and talk to them. Definitely connect on whatever media you want and so on.
Right. And I think I have one final recommendation what to do if you want to get into this field is, you have Dr. Waco right here, and you have him on the YouTube channel, so just go there and subscribe. Sometimes, not often, but sometimes he says something smart on his channel. So definitely subscribe to Dr. Waco.
Yeah, I think there's basically 2 YouTubers right now that are really focused on AI safety. One is me, and one is Rob Miles. He's been doing it for a long time. He's more technical. You should check him out as well. But yeah.
Just because I kind of know the YouTube AI area and all the channels that are in YouTube that talk about AI. And I can say that Dr. Waco's channel is probably one of the very, very few who are, I call them, a plank YouTube channels. You know that series, it's actually a true story that there are 2 types of knowledge. One knowledge is Planck knowledge, and another knowledge is called chauffeur knowledge. And I'll explain what it means. I think it's important here for us. When Max Planck got a Nobel Prize in physics, he was invited, he was traveling from one university to another in Europe, and he was driving, and he has a chauffeur. And the chauffeur, each time when Max Planck was giving a presentation to his discovery, chauffeur was around. And then in Munich, when they got to Munich, chauffeur just jokingly said, like, "Hey, Max Planck, Mr. Planck, I heard that your presentation so often that I actually learned it by heart. I can do it instead of you." And Max Planck said, "Yeah, go ahead. Next one in Munich, you're going to be on stage." It's a true story. And chauffeur got on stage, gave that presentation. Then all the questions followed, and he answered all the questions because he heard them so many times. And he answered all the questions. Nobody even suspected anything wrong. And then there was some kind of really kind of crazy professor who asked a non-standard question. And then chauffeur looked at everybody, said like, "Hey, I'm surprised that such a sophisticated audience as in Munich, here in Munich, University of Munich, and asking such easy questions that even my chauffeur can answer them." And he pointed at Mr. Planck.
I have heard about this.
The point here is there are 2 types of knowledge. There is a chauffeur knowledge where people just learn what the speech and to answer like common answers. And there is expert knowledge. And I can say that Dr. Waco is one of the very few who actually he has Max Planck knowledge. All right, so with that unexpected introduction, so where we were. All right, so basically what I personally learned from it is that this profession, the AI cybersecurity, let's call it like overall in general, it does have future. and it probably will be big enough to accommodate a substantial part of us. And basically, I wanted to thank you for sharing your expertise. And what I want to, I just feel somehow, I don't know why, but somehow I feel that many of you guys, you're still skeptical. You still think like, oh, what these guys are talking, it's like long-term future. There is one thing I encourage you to do. Like, here's a video that we filmed literally yesterday. And in that video, we discussed what NVIDIA unveiled yesterday as well in CES conference in Vegas. And this is mind-blowing. So basically, if you boil it down, what Jensen Huang says that IT department is actually, I think it's almost in present tense, is new HR department. And the reason why he's saying this is that because agentic AI taking over human jobs, including coders, this is not a long-term future. This is happening right now. So I encourage you to go there, check the video, and that hopefully will give you some sense of urgency in this entire task. So I know that I have many coding friends, and I see them, I talk to them, and they still behave as if nothing happens. They all use ChatGPT or Copilot. They all agree like, yes, AI is the future, and they do nothing about it.
Thinking a few steps ahead, you know, where's the ball going is so hard when the ball is accelerating, right? Like you think, oh, the ball will be here, but no, the ball will be a kilometer away.
And exponentially accelerating. So guys, pay attention to it. And the best way, it's not like I'm advertising my yesterday's video, but I want to tell you that something extraordinary is happening, and start preparing, start paying attention. All right, thank you, Dr. Waco. It was very helpful for me personally, and I learned a lot, and I hope we all learned a lot. So check the videos, go to comments, leave comments, tell us what you think, because it's actually very important for us. It's actually, I don't know, I don't think I mentioned that. I don't think I mentioned that quite often, but comments are super important. This is, I don't know, by the way, what's your experience with comments? But when I personally, you have definitely way more comments than I do, but when I receive comments, it's actually a great feeling. It kind of feels that feedback thing, but basically when you know that there is actually somebody out there who liked what you did, or not even liked, but just reacted what you did, it's actually a great feeling. So Dr. Waco is nodding. I take it as a yes.
Comments are important for YouTubers. And actually, for me, that was one of the reasons I created the channel. I wanted a community that I could talk to. And my videos naturally lend themselves to comments because they're quite long and they have lots of information in them. So I think I do get lots of comments and very good ones. And yeah, it really helps the YouTuber out for the algorithm and for their own mental health.
So yeah, whenever you see the comment button, just click it and just leave anything. Again, YouTube is a fairly stupid machine. It just needs a comment. So just tell us what you think. All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much for having me. It was great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Waco.
Bye.
Cheers.